Hi, my name is Melanie Dominich Rodriguez. I'm a professor of psychology here at Utah State, and I've been at USU since the fall of 2000, so it's been a little while. I'm a member of the IRB and have been so since 2006 and became chair in 2012. So I'm an active researcher on campus in addition to the service role, and I use mostly quantitative methods and experimental paradigms. But I'm also trained in qualitative methods, and I value all research methods because they help us answer the questions that we have depending on what we're interested in learning. I work primarily with vulnerable populations, and so I deeply value the work that we do at the IRB. I've created this video in particular to support researchers on campus that are trying to improve their understanding of human protections processes. So today I want to focus on protocol deviations primarily because these are the cause of a lot of distress for our faculty. So once you submit your protocol to the IRB and it is approved, the research in theory proceeds. But those of us that have spent any time conducting research know that sometimes things don't really proceed as we planned them to. So it's important for researchers to communicate with the IRB about any changes in approved procedures before they occur. If you do so via an amendment modification. We review it, we approve it, and the research proceeds. When minor changes in approved procedures are not reported before they occur, the event is considered a deviation from the approved protocol. And those things can include changes in the number of participants in your study, changes in recruitment methods, changes in the instruments that you use for your research, among other things. A deviation is in essence any departure from the procedures and/or treatment plans as documented in the protocol that the IRB reviewed and approved. Deviations are tricky because they have the potential to place participants at risk. Deviations can also undermine the scientific integrity of the study. And so increasing risk to participants and/or undermining the scientific integrity of a study can directly impact the justification for the research, which was the basis for the approval. So when there is a deviation and it's brought to our attention at the IRB, we evaluate it to determine if it had a significant effect on the rights, safety, or welfare of participants. We ask ourselves if the deviation has affected the scientific integrity of the study or the quality of the scientific data. If the answer to both of those questions is no, then you're going to receive a request from us to fill out a deviation report form. Deviations are typically a type of non-compliance, and what this means is that the PI didn't comply with the approved protocol. At the USU IRB, the chair is tasked with making the initial determination of whether the noncompliance is serious or not, and whether the noncompliance is continuing or not. So when deviations are considered minor, meaning that they don't affect the risk to participants or the integrity of the research, we simply call them deviations. They are not serious and they're not continuing. We ask PIs to complete a deviation report form. That deviation is then reported to the full IRB board. The board has an opportunity to comment or make recommendations at the next convened meeting, and basically we file it and we're done. When a deviation is serious and/or continuing, we call that either a serious noncompliance, continuing noncompliance, or serious and continuing noncompliance. That is a topic on a separate video. If you have a non-serious, non-continuing noncompliance, that's just known as a deviation. And what you will find is that you're participating in a primarily administrative process. You fill out a form, there's notification, and documents are filed. Minor amendments to the protocol may still be necessary after a deviation is reported to prevent the deviation from recurring. So remember that you want it to be not serious and you want it to be not continuing. So if you've been around for a little bit and you've consistently produced research, you probably have filed a deviation form. I certainly have. A couple of things before I go. I want you to note that a deviation is different from two other types of events. One of them is unanticipated problems, and the other one is adverse events. So unanticipated problems, much as the name suggests, are unexpected events that are more likely than not related to research participation. and that suggests that the IRB's assessment of risks and benefits may be different than we originally calculated. So a deviation is a shift in procedures, and an unanticipated problem is in essence an unforeseen event in the conduct of the research. Unanticipated problems that are serious can be deemed to also be adverse. So adverse events are negative events, they can be physical or psychological, that are experienced by research participants. Adverse events can be anticipated, and so an example of that, for example, is a researcher clearly states in their informed consent form that a participant might experience pain from a particular test, and then the participant does experience the pain. So that's an adverse event. In that same research, if there were many side effects listed on the consent form, but pain was not one of them, yet the participant reports pain, then they would be experiencing an unanticipated adverse event. So I'm going to stop there for now. Please keep in mind that there's many distinctions made when things don't go as we planned them. In research, we don't expect as an IRB for PIs to be able to recite the difference between deviations, noncompliance, unanticipated events, and adverse events. But we do encourage you instead to rely on the expertise of the IRB office and the board to help guide you in those difficult moments. You can pick up the phone, you can send us an email. Believe it or not, we derive a lot of joy and personal meaning from working with PIs that are committed to the principles of justice, respect for persons, and beneficence that drive the work that we do and as the Institutional Review Board here at USU.